Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and I've got something interesting to share with you. It's not a trick. This is not a trick at all. This is just a discussion on something we've talked about before. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about and get flamed for, and that is bottom dealing, or trick dealing, any kind of trick dealing. I don't do an awful lot of it, but whenever I do it, and whenever I show it on YouTube, I get criticized. Every time, okay? However, when I do it in performance and use, I get oohs and ahs and surprise endings. Okay, we're going to look at bottom dealing at least in two different ways. There is what I feel is the secure kind of bottom dealing that I actually use and do for people when I need to, okay? Whenever I need to do it in an impromptu moment, I have a deck of cards and I can use it as a utility. And that's the one that I've talked about on the channel before, which is the Erise bottom deal. I've done several videos on this, usually dealing with comments, people talking about the flare of the ring finger underneath. And I've spent time on that, talking about how it's not an issue. Most people who give an honest appraisal of this particular kind of bottom deal will state universally, unanimously, that the only problem with the Erise bottom deal is that magicians know about it. That's it. It's the only problem with it, because otherwise the fact that it has its tells are really irrelevant for anybody else. They just they can't put together the math equation that helps them to understand that it is a bottom deal. But it does have its tells. I've talked about that before. I've even shown the Erise pages where it's discussed in the book and the graphics that were drawn for the deal. And it shows by description and by image that flare is part of the deal. That's just part of it, okay? And one of the reasons you might ask a question then, why not try to minimize the flare? Well, that's fair. I think the number one reason not to try to minimize the flare is, why would you, if it makes it secure? If the action of dealing with a very, very pronounced grab on the ring finger makes the deal more secure, it seems to me that would matter more than making it less secure and more invisible. Do you know what I mean? So someone out there is going to say, yeah, well, I've mastered it. Well, good for you. Wonderful, wonderful, good for you. Okay, I'm just talking in real terms here, just in terms of accessibility of the move. So this is the one I do. Now, I recently posted a video just earlier today of an over-the-shoulder view, right? And I deal out a few hands, right? And from this side, you see what it looks like. It looks like the top card's coming off and then it goes down, but it's not, right? The deal, though, is that whenever someone shows this view to show off their bottom deal, they're actually hiding the issue that magicians are more interested in. Of course it looks good from this angle, right? But who sees it from this angle? Someone standing over your shoulder at a poker game? I mean, like, that doesn't happen. The only person that sees that angle is you. The true angle is the one that's out there about where the camera's at, right here, right? And you can see it goes around, and you can see that pronounced flare. You see that the finger goes up, but you also see that the card goes down, right? The card goes where it's supposed to go without any kind of hiccup in the proper, well, except for that one, in the proper rhythm. Another thing about, one thing about missing as well. I missed that one, but you'll notice at least one other time as I was going around, I got to one that I missed. Even on one of the examples that I did, it wasn't on that deal. It was the one before that where I do the straddle grip bottom deal. I missed one on it. It's a very fascinating thing. This is just kind of talking openly about it. That feeling when you're doing it, that you don't ever care about missing on a normal deal. You only care about missing on a false deal. But if it doesn't matter that you miss on a normal deal, then it shouldn't matter that you miss on a false deal. The only thing that should matter about missing on a false deal is being caught with something hanging out, right? That's the only thing that should matter. But with respect to dealing the bottom and missing on it and then having to go back for it, that should not matter, because that happens just in normal dealing sometimes, right? I didn't mean that one. I meant that one, but I didn't mean that one. That's it right there, okay? I missed it. It should not matter that if you miss on the bottom and go back for it. Just another thing to rant about. So anyway, that is the real Erdnase bottom deal as I do it, as it's discussed in the book. And I will always go to that as the surefire way to bottom deal. Now, here's the truth behind the situation. You've made it this far. Ready? Here's the truth. I just washed a sink full of dishes, okay, with like generic dish detergent. My hands are really, really dry. They're really, really dry. You wouldn't catch me in this situation doing the better looking deal, which is probably the straddle or one of the others where you're gripping the deck in such a way that you can just strike the bottom card, right? I would never ever do this in reality. I cannot grab that card. There ain't no way I'm grabbing that card, okay? I can go around and try as I might. I cannot get a hold of that card. My hands feel like glass right now. There's just no grip to them. However, with the Erdnase deal, and that pronounced push using the actual fingertip where you have the best grip on the tip of the fingers, and the benefit of even having the pinky to help out, which is a little bit more buried, right? I know that as I go around, I'm going to grab the card and I'm going to get it, okay? That is why I go with that deal instead of the other one in most situations. Now, more of the truth, that's a top. More of the truth, this is from Straddle. I cannot grab that card. More of the truth behind the video prior to that, where it was all straddle deal, okay? That was a one-time take, but this was my process, okay? A little bit of just kind of generic. This is Curel. It's not really generic. I mean generic by as in regular hand cream, just regular kind of hand cream. It's not any kind of specific one. I mean the ultra healing, kind of the extreme ones that are out there, but regular kind of lotion hand cream, right? It started with this. This was the beginning of it, but this is not the end, okay? This is just the beginning, and you got to get it on there, and you got to get it so that it's really worked in and dry. And I like to do this anyway when dealing with hand creams, just whenever I have cracked hands. I'm an instrumental music teacher, so I wash my hands constantly. I'm always touching spit and saliva and instruments, and I have to wash my hands all day long, and I wash my hands frequently, constantly, so I'm always having to put hand cream on. I'll always start with something like that, usually right after I wash my hands when they're still a little bit moist from the water, and I find that this helps to really sink it in. It'll mix with the water and really get sunk into the pores, and because it's this very, very fluid lotion, I find that this works really well to get deep. I don't find that it lasts very long, but it will get fairly deep, okay? That's step one. Step two might involve something like this. This is just a CVS, a generic brand of, I'm not even sure what it is. See, what is the actual stuff going? Oh, this is O'Keeffe's, right? This is the generic version of O'Keeffe's. And this is a little bit different. It's got a different kind of mechanism. It's not really a lotion. This stuff actually will dry right onto the skin. And I only apply this. Sometimes I'll apply this on like a really cracked part if I need to, take care of my hands. If I have really, really dry hands, I've got a crack right there. So I might kind of rub in a little bit there. But otherwise, I only apply this to the tips of the fingers, only to the tips of the fingers, because I really only need to use this for the card stuff. And a little bit goes a long way. And you rub it until it dries in, and it makes a really interesting kind of sticky. It's kind of a dry, sticky sort of feel to it, right? So I usually do that. And then I'm not done yet, right? That's the first part. And then I go to this here, which is, what is this called? What's the name of this? The label's missing on that one. Sort Quick, right? Was it Sort Quick? Yeah, sort quick. This is what you use to like count money. It's not really hand care stuff. It's actually used to get grip. What I do is I put this on the fingers I need it on. So if I'm going to be doing the straddle strike, I need my middle finger is the one I strike with. I try to get for the Erdnase one, it's usually my ring finger that I strike with. I usually put both of my front finger, my forefinger and my ring finger out in front. For some reason, I find it's just easy to grab that card from the. It's sometimes called the cigar deal, as if you were holding a cigar in your finger, right? It's this kind of thing. So you're gripping with that finger, but I just do it without anything in my hand. So I need the tips of those, and I need my thumb on the top right here. And then the other thing I like to do, particularly if I'm going to be dealing with any seconds, is I want to get all of the pad of the thumb in this hand. So all of the pad of the thumb over here, because if I want to do a push-off second, I want to push one card, a straddle second, because that's different from the Erdnase second, which is going to use this pad of the finger. But I'd be using this back pad of the finger, pushing one card forward, then gripping the next card. And then I have these ones also lubed up here or creamed up or whatever, so I can grab the second card from underneath and pull it out. And then lastly, if I really care, because of the Erdnase thing, I'll put a little bit of this stuff on the ring finger and the middle finger on this hand for the push out. Okay, so these are the fingers that get hit: thumb, second finger, third finger for the Erdnase. First finger doesn't really matter, but certainly the thumb does matter. Thumb over here, and then the ring finger, middle finger on this side. And I just try to get these really, really kind of moistened up. It's not really moistened. It's an additive, right? These kinds of care products are really an additive. They're not really moisteners. It's actually something that's sitting on the skin and really dries on the skin. And it helps, I think, to lock in moisture and lock out water, which can remove moisture. It just helps with the oils in there. I don't use, I need to get some. I haven't used pine tar, or what the magicians know as octopalm. I believe it's really just pine tar. They say that it has that kind of pine scent. I've never bought any octopalm, but from everything I've read about it, it seems that that's really all it is, just a pine tar. I've not used that. I would like to go grab like maybe a stick of it, the stick kind of stuff that you can just rub a very thin film on it and get it on, and it's super, super sticky. I think that would be really ideal for surefire strike kind of dealing, okay? But this is the real truth behind it. And I've even gone so far as to take a little square of double stick tape and put it on a finger, the middle finger down here that I would be gripping with if I need to do a strike from the bottom, or the thumb if I'm doing a second strike from the top. You put it on, and then you just kind of oil it up a little bit with your finger, and it gives just just enough kind of stickiness to grab the card out. That's really, really specialized. This is like in line with using pine tar or octopalm, okay, as a trick. But otherwise, this is just my hands with this type of moisturizer. So something very thin for the hands all over, okay, just to kind of keep the hands all kind of soft, okay. And I don't do this all the time. I only do it when I need to do the card stuff, or if my hands are in bad shape and they need to be softened up, okay. So there's that. Then the O'Keeffe's or generic O'Keeffe's on fingers that really would need it. And then specifically the specific fingers that are grabbing a little bit of quick sort. And I'll apply this kind of in between things too. So I'll have that on the side. If I'm recording something every now and then in the middle of what I'm doing, I may stop and relubricate so that I can grab. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's talk about the deal from this situation. So now, as I go around, and we'll see, I don't know if this is going to hit or not. Now I've got grip. Okay, now I've got some grip. It's not a lot more grip than what I had. Oh, I missed it. Not a lot more grip than what I had, but it's enough to get a hold of a card and apply pressure on the bottom lightly. Allow the deck to lift, kind of like it's floating on the hand, and then pull the card out. Okay, so it's like floating, but I'm making very light contact with the first finger and the pinky back here to keep everything else in place, and that card flies right out. And the benefit of doing this, obviously, is that there's no flaring. There's nothing going on. The fingers here are holding back the cards as I push with my thumb to push one card. And I drop that card, and then I go to the next, I push one card, and then I do the next. And then when I get to the actual card, these fingers are actually going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to grab the card underneath, and then they're going to just ride over top of those fingers, only allowing that one card to go and no more. The pads of these fingers back here are withholding anything else that comes after this clears. So I don't need to jut the fingers out to allow that to come out. They just sit in the same place they were before. And then whenever I make contact for the strike and I pull it out, it will just curve up around those fingers and come off over top of those fingers and underneath the top card. So that is the just my basic personal understanding of these deals. The Erdnase one I'm not going to cover in depth because I've already done it on other videos. But yeah, hand products, right? Keeping the hands moist and sometimes applying very special products to be able to get a grip in specific situations. But again, I go back to this Erdnase thing. I can do this with dish soap hands, right, that are extremely dry. I can just with the natural kind of stickiness that are on the fingers, just even after washing dishes, I can know that this is going to work. I'm not going to miss. Okay, I can push it out. I missed on the thing, but I know that it was free. Okay, I know I'm going to get it doing that, even if it looks really ugly to magicians who have read Erdnase. Even then, don't care, right? I know you're going to point to some other people out there that have made some videos that have really minimized that. Now, one thing to consider, and something that I'm forward thinking about, is working on maybe using this Erdnase grip for strikes. Right? So for a bottom strike. So if I have an Erdnase grip, I'm really floating the deck much like I would be with a straddle. It's not quite as floaty because back here on the palm, there's a little bit of surface contact back there. There can be a little surface contact up here, but if you get a little lazy with it, there might even be some surface contact back here if you're not being mindful about it, where you're touching the face of the deck back here, right there, and then right here with the first finger. But if you can really get it suspended, you should be able to do a strike even from an Erdnase grip without having to push anything out. Probably the place to grab contact would be here, in front of the middle finger, or in front of the ring finger, and probably with the second finger like I would with a straddle. But I have not played enough with this really to see if this has some potential for it. I suppose probably with a pine tar or an octopalm kind of additive, this might be a little bit more applicable. Because I don't really get enough grip. There's too much. That was a good one there. I could feel it. There's too much, I think, touching in the back corner and up here where the finger's touching. Whereas opposed with the straddle grip, there's really no face contact. There's face contact with the deck back here because it's sitting, but it's only sitting. There's no pressure down on it. Otherwise, there's no contact whatsoever. The face of the deck is completely open. And that's why, so long as you have enough grip on a finger, why this is a very, very good strike position to go from there. And especially if the hands are lubed up, as they are right now, very, very easy to get a grip of a card and then drop it out. Okay. At this point, I probably go back and put a little bit of quick sort or sort quick on my fingers. Okay. So anyway, just a little bit more discussion on bottom dealing. Now, for the common magician, this is so not common magician stuff, right? I mean, the common magician would not be working a lot on the bottom deal. Well, I like to use mostly my Erdnase bottom deal is not for gambling kind of demonstrations, right, where I'm pushing out a card and dealing out hands. This is what we usually think about bottom dealing being used for. I actually prefer to use it as a one-off, both that and the second deal. Okay, so I would do the Erdnase bottom deal as a one-off situation, like if we're counting to a number and we're spelling out, and I've reserved the card of interest at the bottom. I've counted down, I've spelled out, and then I say right here. And when I say right here, I've pushed out the card pointing to this card, and I'm free and clear. Everything is stopped to get these fingers in place to get a grip and push on it. And I'm already set. The card's free. we're looking at this right here, and now I can reach and grab that, and I can do a little bit of, as some people will note, wrist kill, just drop the wrist a little bit, drop the card down, and then there it is, right? So I like to use a bottom deal as a one-off, and you really could do the ugliest Erdnase bottom deal in that way. They say stop right here, this card right here, and see how I get the card? You can see it because you know it's there. But outside of the context of a bottom deal where there's not a rhythm, it really doesn't matter, right? I know I've got it. I'm pointing here. I reach over, I grab the card, and I drop it down. And I've just done a very, very accessible bottom deal using the Erdnase technique. And I know I'm going to get it because it's probably the most secure, most easily handled. I know I've got a grip on the card, and my hands can be in pretty much any condition to do it. Okay. For the second deal, a second deal would normally be something that you would be doing in succession, right? Where I would be striking maybe here if I'm pushing off and doing a strike to take off the second card. Again, if your hands are lubed, the strike is really, really easy to do from Erdnase grip. So those are all strikes. I actually prefer to do the Erdnase push, which is where you push off with the top card, and you would want this finger pretty moist and grippy. It's because I push down with this card and then grab the border of the next one, and then you want this to be fairly grippy so that I can grab the corner from underneath and then grab the corner and pull it out, right? So I like to do the Erdnase bottom deal kind of at slower speed. I kind of need to look at it too because it's a little bit of a target practice. See, as soon as I look away, as soon as I look up, I miss. But it's a little bit of target practice involved because I like to go for that corner and get a solid pinch on it to know I'm going to pull it out. For straddle grip seconds, to come back to this, a push-off second here, again, you want to have moist fingers over here so that you can make contact on the second card, but also on the pad over here. Because I push off from straddle, the top card, and then the second card right behind it. So it's actually looking like this. You have top card and then a margin of the second, and then I'm reaching under to grab the second one. I just lift up, grab the second as I pull the top one back. So this is the push off from straddle. I don't like to do this one. This isn't really my preferred. I'd rather do a strike. I'm more practiced at a strike from here or an Erdnase push-off from here. I prefer the Erdnase push-off, those two. I prefer the Erdnase push-off. And usually if I know I'm going to do it, another thing, like the book suggests, I'll pull the card down so I actually have my finger on both margins. So I've got the margin of this card, top card, but I already have a margin of the second card in play. The card's been pulled down a little bit, so then I know I can reach out and grab it. So I really do prefer that one, I think, rather than a strike. For the reason that you can see here, again, with a strike, I can't do it with dish soap hands, but I can do the Erdnase push-off a little bit more slowly with dishwasher hands, right? Or dish soap hands. And I can just necktie so you don't see it. So that's my preferred second. I don't do a lot of them. But one-off second, a one-off second. Here's how I do the one-off second. Erdnase grip, and I may get a get ready like for a double. So I actually I've pushed off two cards, and I've got the break underneath the second, right? So for the one-off, let's say I'm already in this situation like that, and I'll have a card out there and I'll throw it on the top. This will relate to a previous video that I did about the invisible deck using a double. You could do a second deal or a top change, very closely related, right? But a second deal is another way rather than do a double lift, right? But I've got my get ready already, and now whenever I go to push those two, it's very easy to get that card. I know it's going to be free. It's already free from the deck. So having a get ready kind of situation for a one-off second, I very rarely use this ever. I honestly, I can't even think of a trick right now where I would use it. I can think of a ton of tricks where I would go to a bottom, but not very many where I would use a strike. The one situation would be is if I had a card in play, I get my get ready over here, I already have my break, I would bring it back to the deck, and then in the context of doing a second deal, I would be able to have that space. So that is how I would do a second. It really wouldn't typically be in a gambling kind of demonstration. My preferred way to do gambling demonstrations for the last few years has actually been to use a stack that I maintain. And I like to use a stack that I maintain, and I like to do it using a double thick card. This is a double backer, but it's a double thick. So I could have that in, and here's my situation where I'm shuffling, maintaining the double thick on top, maintaining the 10 of diamonds on the bottom. For some reason I'm interested in that. And then I would go to some kind of a cut situation, right? And then whenever I go to do the final cut after all the shuffling, I can very easily cut that down. And now I've got my double thick on the top, which I'm going to throw away. And if it's just a random regular card thrown away, it can be shown in a hand or whatever. I've maintained my stack at the bottom that I can get to, or I've incorporated my double thick. To get back on track here, I've incorporated my double thick into the stack that's on top. So what I'll do is I'll maintain my top stack, big margins on the top, shuffling shallow, right? Remember, this is always on the top, so I can always cut it in, and then I can always get back to it. And then I've maintained my slug. I've preferred to do that much more lately, and rather than having to go to bottom dealing and trick dealing, I can actually deal free. I can just deal the slug that I've had out, right? And especially if you're doing a hold'em demonstration, there's fewer cards involved because you're using community cards. So I don't have to deal all these cards out for every single hand I'm doing. I only need to do a stack for pockets and then my hold'em thing out there. So I prefer not to use it bottom dealing and trick dealing for gambling demonstrations lately anyway. Okay, but as a one-off to deal out a single card that's been reserved, right? So I can mix the cards up. Very fair to anybody that doesn't know. Always end with a cut. Okay, and I say name a number, and they name a number like, I don't know, 16, right? And Queen of Diamonds. Queen of Diamonds is what we're going for. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is the 16th card. You said 16, right? 16? And there it is. And you're going to say, oh, but I could hear it and I know it's there, whatever. That's not the point. That's not the purpose of it. It's just about pointing. Here's the card. Flip. There it is. Nobody's the wiser, okay? And it's Queen of Diamonds. So that is how I prefer to use it, rather than in a dealing kind of situation. You know what you have on the bottom. You've reserved it off. You're spelling, or you've cut the deck or something like that, and you're coming from somewhere else. Or they can cut the deck, say, go ahead and cut the deck anywhere you want. This card, this is where you want it, right here, right? And I've got my get ready already, and then I just pull the card out. And there it is, Queen of Diamonds, right? So that's the way I prefer to use a bottom deal, as a one-off. And I always go with the Erdnase for the reasons I've discussed. I know I can get a grip. I know it's going to work. I can do it in any conditions. I don't have to do pre-treatment to get there. And if you're doing it as a one-off, all of the tells don't matter anymore. They really just don't. So anyway, just more discussion on some bottom dealing. I've been putting up a few bottom dealing and trick dealing videos, so I figured I'd get off the other topics we were talking about, get onto that. A little bit for you in the common magician land out there, ways that you can make it a little bit more accessible. Good luck with that. Happy magicking.